I'm Annette McCoy. Joining me this morning is Janet Hickox. And our topic is fantastic. Rewriting our human love story. Woohoo! That conjures up all sorts of things, doesn't it?
I know. Where are we going to go?
Yes. Before we start, may I remind everybody that these shows should never replace your legal, medical, nor professional advice, nor your own sound judgment. Janet, rewriting our personal and general love story. That's what it's all about.
Right. And, I think what was funny about it is I received your email about this week, right? And I was like, oh, okay, I've got to write her a little blurb. And I just sat down at the keyboard and I'm like, what am I going to say? And it just flowed out of me. And I'm like, okay, I guess Spirit has this story in mind for today. And as I started really looking at everything that has to do with this full moon tomorrow and later on in the day for you all there in Australia, actually, it'll be our Thursday, it'll be your Friday.
Right.
It had a distinct theme that was popping in, and it was just giving me chills as I started to look at it. So even though typically we don't think of Capricorn as a sign, that's where the full moon will be. We don't generally think of that as a sign that's going to bring us love or anything, spectacular in that way. It really does hold some really interesting info for us. So, yeah.
All right. Now, I forgot when I welcomed everybody to suggest that they go to Angel Heart Radio Facebook page if they would like to ask questions or make comments. You and I delight, don't we, in having comments. So, audience, if you'd like to join in the discussion, maybe you've got a question for Janet, please go over to the Angel Heart Radio Facebook page because you may comment there and we see your comments.
Right. Comments, questions, and that type of thing are exciting for us.
Absolutely. Yes. Now, Janet, you mentioned your other show that you're with me once a month. However, you are on your own Facebook page, Living Astrology, regularly, aren't you? Every day. No, sorry.
Well, I was doing it every day, but it got to be too much. So then I cut back to just Mondays and Fridays. And right now I'm broadcasting it live on YouTube and on my Living Astrology Facebook page. Using a new stream service for me called StreamYard. And it's just so nice to be able to watch it get split off. And just makes my life so much easier, at least for broadcasts, it does.
Right.
And today I came on air, even though Wednesdays I hadn't been. But if there's something special going on, like the entire month of May, I came on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. June, all last week was a very quiet week, so I didn't need to. But this week is a little bit more ramped up. So I decided to come on air this morning as an extra bonus broadcast. And I'll be back on again on Friday. But all of those are all recorded, and you can find them on Living Astrology on Facebook, or you can find them on the YouTube channel, also called Living Astrology.
Right. Very good, because your information is amazing.
Thank you. I know there's always a lot, and sometimes it can be very confusing. And I got to tell you, I'm doing something new, Annette. I'm not sure that I rolled that out last month because you know what? The time seems to fly by. So it seems like only yesterday that I talked to you, but just in the off chance that I didn't mention it last month, I'm doing something new called Astro Design. It is my own combination, if you will, of astrology and human design and the gene keys that I'm bringing together. And it began because one day I decided to just take a deeper look at what signs were what gates in human design. And what an exercise that turned out to be, as I was pretty shocked by what I was seeing. And I just loved the way that looked, the way that felt, in a way to present it to people for both systems. So today, it's your morning, my evening, we're going to do some astro design. But I'll start with the astrology of it all. And of course, what's the backdrop of all of this for us tonight to talk about is the full moon. And we're sitting here right now at a point in time just before the full moon. So we're gathering the light, if you will. And
Right.
in the gathering of the light before the moon becomes full, it gives us an opportunity to tap into what is the light revealing to us. And that was my question to everybody this morning, is to take a look at that. What is being revealed in your life at this moment? And it doesn't have to be just a snapshot of today. It could be over the last couple of weeks since the new moon occurred. What has been showing up? What has the sun or the light of the world been showing you more about who you are or what you're here to do? Because just before the full moon is the best time to take a look at that and see what things might need to be trimmed from your life, let go of, what might be the revelation that's oncoming from the full moon. And it just gives us this moment before we actually get to that full moon tomorrow of just an inner check-in, if you will, for ourselves.
Now, I've been a little distracted because Lacey has joined us. Thank
Hi,
you,
Lacey.
Lacey, and everybody else who has joined this discussion. So is this full moon more important, Janet?
I wouldn't say it's any more important than any of the other moons, but it does happen to have a lot of punch with it, a lot of potential for some positive energies to be expressed through it, partly because of the nature of the energies that are in the gates and the signs at the moment, but also because Jupiter is placed very much, very positively in connection with both the sun and the moon. And when that happens, we are actually given a gift almost of expansion, of being able to be more optimistic, to maybe see how a broader horizon, maybe be able to see how things are fitting together in a better way. And so all of the full moons are going to give us that same ability to tap into something or to see something that we haven't seen before, or to let go of something or release something. But this one just happens to have some really interesting characteristics around love energy and around the stories that we tell in relation to the lives that we're leading. And I want to jump into that. But first, I think what we need to do is start with, I have my little agenda here. I want to start with what it is that Cancer Capricorn energy represents, especially as it relates to human design. But we're going to start with the astrology of these two. So the moon is in Capricorn, or will be in Capricorn for the full moon. And that means the sun is in the sign of Cancer. And in the sign of Cancer, the sun is spotlighting home and family and security and stability and roots, the things that build our strong foundation, so that we can then, in the sign of Capricorn, go out on our worldly quests, whatever that might be, to find the career of our choice or to seek our authority in the world, to live our authentic life. So we have an opposition. That's what a full moon is, where the sun and the moon are in an opposition to one another, kind of pulling us in two different directions. And the moon happens to be the ruler of Cancer, where the sun is placed. So it's really the moon that has the most power in this particular time. And the moon being in Capricorn is wanting us to find a balancing point between the expression of ourselves in our families and home and our expression of ourselves out in the work world. And it's interesting because I was looking, as I always do when there's a big aspect coming up, like a full moon, I start looking at the news feeds to see what are the stories that are out there. And interesting, one story caught my eye, and it was about how people are not returning to their jobs, their own choice. They're not returning to their jobs post-COVID as the world thought they would, which means one of two things. One, they found something new to do and their job is no longer as an important thing to them. 10th house, Capricorn, is all of that work energy. Or they've discovered that, employers don't really give one whit about them, that they're using them as workhorses, and they've decided that their families may be more important, their home life may be more important.
Right.
So it's always interesting to see in the news the balancing act between those two things in people's lives. So I just thought I would share that as well. I'm going to share my screen real quickly because I want to show people what this all looks like. Now I got to make sure I'm going to get the right. Yes, I think that's the right one. It is. Good. So are you seeing my screen with Capricorn gates with the full moon?
Yes.
Okay.
Indeed.
So in human design, we actually get to see the energetics behind the sign. So if we have Capricorn energy, which we know pretty much what that means on the scale of astrology, this way we can tap into what are some of the meanings, the more detailed meanings of the energies in that sign in the human design chart. So what you're seeing here is all of the different gates highlighted that are Capricorn gates during this period of time, as well as the sun in the gate 15, which is a Cancer gate. So everything else is a moon gate, or except Jupiter. I threw that one in because that was fun. So let's go through what some of these energies are in general, and then I'll bring it back to which energy it is that is going to be a part of the full moon. So the first gate that we find Capricorn energy in is the gate 10, which sits on the identity center. And the identity center, if you can believe this, is a center of love. It is about receiving love or giving love. So love bidirectional, it can go either way. In fact, we're meant to receive and we're meant to give. So it is not specifically in one direction. So we have the sun and the moon and earth sitting at gates in a center that represents love, but they're also sitting at gates that represent love in its various facets. So the gate 10, where the moon is in the full moon, is at the gate of self-love, while the sun is sitting at the gate of compassion or love of humanity. So we see very powerful love energy being shown to us at this particular time in this particular full moon. But the other gates are also interesting in Capricorn. Joy. I mean, when I think of Saturn and as the ruler of Capricorn, joy isn't exactly what jumps into my mind. But here it is. The gate of joy or bliss or vitality is the next gate the moon will be in right after it's full. And then we have the gate of opposition, also known as the gate of fight, right? What are we fighting for? What's worth fighting for in our lives? The gate 54 on the root center, the gate of ambition or drive, the will to move outward from within to experience life and to begin a process of expansion. And then gate of wonder, which is up here in the head center. And this gate limitation, which is back down here on the root center. So that sets the tone for the energies of Capricorn that we're going to be experiencing. But specifically, as we're looking at the full moon, we find it in the gates of love. And then I mentioned that Jupiter was in a very powerful place in a connection to the sun, moon, and earth that is very positive. And Jupiter sitting right here on the emotional center at the gate 55, which is the gate of abundance. It's the gate of having faith and surrendering to and trusting in a higher power. Which you could also call the loving energy behind the universe, right? Behind everything that is. So we have another connection with a planet, a very powerful, magnetic, attractive force called Jupiter that's attracting to us the energies of abundance, abundance in love, abundance in finances, abundant health, abundant, you name it, right? Whatever it is, it's the potential to attract to us all things of an abundant nature. But it requires faith and trust on our part that one, we deserve that we have intrinsic worth. I mean, if there's nothing here that says you have to go out and work hard in order to be abundant. That is, if so, it would be over here on the sacral, right? The sacral is the center for work, not the emotional center.
Right.
So we really see that with Jupiter sitting here, it's not about going out and working to find abundance. It's about attracting abundance to us through an emotional alignment, an alignment that is calibrated between the solar plexus and the heart centers. These two are different heart centers. So when we're aligned with our heart and our soul and our mind and our emotions, we are very highly attractive forces for the positive, for love, for resources, etc. Does all that make sense?
It does. And that's what we're aiming for, isn't it?
Right. But I think, what inspired me to talk today about rewriting the story is that we are often, I'm going to stop sharing so we could be face to face now. I'll share something else in a minute. Is that we're often living in a story of what we don't have, or what good hasn't come to us, or about how we failed at something, or the darker side, if you will, of our stories. It's not to say that things haven't happened to us that weren't so positive or so exciting or so happy, right? We all have, experiences of betrayal, or of guilt, or of shame, or of death, or of, you name it. I could go on and on that we've experienced, but we're very tempted to keep living in the story of the pain and the wound that we experienced, rather than transmuting that over into, but look at what I received because this happened. I would never have seen this as a gift before now. So we can rewrite these stories, and the energy of this moon is bringing that to us. So now I want to take a look at the full moon in terms of astrology. Are there any questions out there, Annette? I'm sure you'll bring them to me if there are.
I will. Now, Pauline has joined us from Queens in New York, and Pauline says that her natal moon is in Capricorn.
So that means at this point in time, she's having a new moon, or a moon lunar return, we would call it. So there could be some amped up energy for her, depending on the degree. This particular new moon is at 3 degrees, or full moon, excuse me, is at 3 degrees of Capricorn. So it would depend on what degree it is in Capricorn. If you know that, Pauline, just spit that out there and we can tell, like, how effective is this going to be for you. In the meantime, let's take a look at the energy of the moon itself, of the full moon itself. Are you seeing my screen?
Yes.
Awesome. So this is the chart of the full moon, and here is the information. So, and dang it, I always forget. I want to write this down. What is your time zone, Annette? If I were going to go look it up, is it Australia Daylight Time, or
Australia AET, Australian Eastern Time.
Australian Eastern Time. Okay, so I'll remember that next time.
AET, it's ASET.
ASET.
Standard Eastern Time. Isn't it?
Okay.
I cheat when I look up, say I know yours is Pacific time, but I've got Seattle in my Google world time. So if I forget, I can look it up. So you can always check out Melbourne.
And Melbourne, so you are right now at, did we start the show at 9 a.m. your time, or 10 a.m.?
No, 10. So it's 10:20 at the moment.
Okay, so that means you're still 15 hours ahead of me?
Yes. See, okay. I work it the other way.
So you're 15 hours ahead of me.
I add on the time, because it's 5 p.m. for you. I add on 7 hours and minus a day.
Okay, well, that will just confuse me. But if I go 15 hours ahead for the full moon for you, it is occurring at 11:39 a.m. Pacific time. So 12 hours would put it at 11:39 p.m. And then we have to take another couple of hours. So it's going to be around 2 a.m., 2:39 a.m. or so. Let's see. So 12, 13, 14, 15. Yeah, so it would be, how funny, that puts it at 2:39 a.m.
Yeah.
on June 25th for you. So
Right.
Friday.
Yeah, so
Friday.
tomorrow morning.
Yeah, tomorrow
If
morning.
I'm awake, I'll check it out.
Or would that be Saturday? No, it would be, yeah, Friday morning, because this is our Thursday morning.
Yeah.
Cool. So we'll start to try to do that when we're talking, if we're going to talk about moons and so forth, now that I know what your actual time stamp is, because I can set the chart to look at that for us as well. So the full moon is occurring at 3 degrees of Capricorn with the sun at 3 degrees of Cancer. And for Australia, as we just said, it's going to be about 2 in the morning tomorrow on June 25th for you. The theme, if we look at the astrological degree, is about attempting to rationalize the changing nature of our circumstances. So essentially, this particular theme tells us that if we're trying to use our mind to work out what it is that's happening in the world or in our personal lives, that we are likely going to miss something, right? We're going to miss the love in this particular experience. When we look at the human design theme, it comes out even more strongly with the sun at the gate 15, which is compassion or the love of our fellow human beings, with the moon at the gate 10, the gate of self-love. So we see that this is all about a theme around love energy, giving and receiving love, both for ourselves, but also for others. And as we said earlier, the closest aspect to this full moon is about Jupiter, and Jupiter in Pisces, making us more sensitive and more emotional, more apt to find the victim energy in things as opposed to the gift or love energy in things. So we have to work a little bit harder to see the loving atmosphere that's really here when we experience these kinds of transits. And I just also wanted to make a note that we're still under the Saturn-Uranus square. It was exact on June 14th, but it hasn't been very far from exact the whole time. So it's not like this year, it's just a thing that's going on behind the scenes, that Saturn and Uranus are creating this pathway for change, disruption, and seeing, what isn't working so that we can create new pathways to what will work. So we have that going on behind everything that's every other aspect that's been coming up. So when we look at that in a chart, we see here's the sun in Cancer. Down here, we see the moon in Capricorn, and the relationship between the moon and Jupiter, here's Jupiter, is a sextile relationship, meaning they got each other's back, right? Jupiter in Pisces and the moon in Capricorn are speaking, they might be speaking different languages, but there's a translator. They get each other. And then the sun is in a trine aspect to Jupiter, both of them in water energy, the element of water, and they are creating a smooth flow of our expansive nature with the sun's focus on forming a new foundation, right? Or being more in our families, loving our families and being in love with the people that we have populated here in our lives. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah. So that's just the picture of what's going on in the astrological full moon. And then I wanted to, thank you. I'm going to share another screen now. I'm just full of things tonight to share. But I have to find it first.
Great job.
Hold on. Let me find it first. Is that it? No. Oh, I know, because it's in the downloads. Just a second. I downloaded it just before I came on air. Now I want to show you how it is that this all comes down to a story that we are in the process of writing, or is it that we're rewriting it? Let's see. So here is another human design chart. And I just, again, I just feel like human design answers all the questions that we have right now about this. So that's why I'm focusing on this. So remember, I showed you in the previous graphic, the moon and earth were going to be at the gate 10, the gate of self-love. The sun at the gate 15, the gate of human love, or the love of humanity, compassion, empathy, that those kinds of energies where we, are really aligned with our fellow human beings. So these two are the major drivers, and that is the energy of love. But the rewriting the story comes in because at the very moment that the moon becomes full, Mercury and Venus and Mars take up residence in gates of our human design that take us into a bit about rewriting the story. So rewriting our love story. So it became very clear that this is what this whole moon was going to be about, because the other planets are supporting characters on the story, in the story, or on the storyline. So Venus, let's take Mercury first. So Mercury, who has just come out of retrograde, he did that on the 22nd. So we now have him moving forward back through the same territory he's been in before. So he's again in the gate 35, which is a gate about our experiences. And whether or not we take up a jaded view of what our experience of life has been and tell that story, or do we take up hey, this is the experience I had, and I'm sharing this with you in a loving way to help you see maybe a path around the experience I had, right? Or in some way being able to share a story or of an experience that we've had. So people who have the gate 35 defined in their own chart are often people who've had a lot of experiences. I sometimes think of them as the Jack or the Jills of all trades, the been there, done that kind of crew. Have you ever been around my husband and I had this friend, and everything that if I had known human design at that point in time, I would have just guaranteed you he had this gate, because no matter what it was that we said, he'd been there, he'd done that. And he was like 10 years younger than us at the time. I'm like, how is that happening? So the gate 35 with Mercury is about communicating our experiences, but taking them out of the realm of the jaded, I always get, dumped on by the universe kind of feeling, to I've had these challenges and I can see that you're experiencing challenges, and I would love to share with you the positive expression of what you're experiencing. So we have experience in the story that we want to share, but in a positive way. Now, Venus is at the gate 56, and these guys move in here in tandem on the same day. So when that happens, I know, well, actually, Mercury is already there, but Venus and Mars both move into storytelling gates on the same day. And that day happens to be the full moon. Right. So caught my attention. So in the gate 56, Venus, who is the planet that represents our relationships, our love of one another, our physical relationships of love, is moving into a gate that is often called the gate of the storyteller. And the storyteller gate here is a gate that's on the throat center. So all three of these gates that are involved in rewriting and retelling the story are on the throat center, which is the center for communication, the center for manifesting, right? And if we're going to manifest a new story, it has to begin in the throat, because we have to start rewording what we're saying. So the gate 56 with Venus here helps us to rewrite the language that we're using in the language of love, right? As opposed to, beating ourselves up with words, loving ourselves with words, right? We can paint a picture with words.
I find it interesting, Janet, that where the planets and the moons are situated, and the sun, like the sun and the moon are in the heart chakra, aren't they?
Yep. Or the identity center, we call it, but it's the seat of the soul. It's where your soul resides in the body.
Right. And then we have, of course, as you're saying now, Venus, Mercury, and Mars in the throat area.
Correct. And they're enabling a newer story. Now, Mars is interesting in this too, because, and before I leave Venus, she's also in a gate that is a teaching gate, teaching through story, right? So when we're talking, we're teaching, even if we don't think of what we're saying as teaching. You and I right here are in a teaching moment. When we're talking to our children about something, we have the opportunity. It's a teaching moment. There are true teachers out there teaching children, right? Or teaching young adults. And it puts a lot of emphasis on then choosing words that are uplifting, that are love-based as opposed to, and empowering, versus the ones that we could choose that frame everything in a negative vibe. So we have Help by Venus right now. Write that story, retell that story in a way that elevates everything, that teaches that, yes, struggle is a part of life, but we don't have to take that struggle and make it a victim story. It could be a story of success, of recognition, of, rising to the challenge and surmounting the challenge. So we have Venus there. Now Mars is also in a storytelling gate. This is the gate that we often think of as the narrative. So we all have a narrative of information that we spill. So I'm sitting here today telling you a story or giving you information, and it is coming out of me in the way that I use words. It's unique to me how I use words, but I'm also attempting, as I'm talking to you and an audience today, to make sure that the words that I'm saying are uplifting, are loving, are generous, are kind, are optimistic. So I'm not trying to make this being some kind of doldrum, boring, or upsetting event in the full moon. I'm trying to make this as something that is uplifting. So the challenge, or the gauntlet, if you will, that Mars is bringing up for us all right now is about taking a really good look at the narrative and what are the words that you're using, and what are the actions that you're taking in response to those words that you're using. Right. So if we're looking at in the mirror and we're just telling ourselves how horrible we are, or how ugly we are, or how whatever, you can fill in the blank. We're setting ourselves up to take action to keep that old story in place rather than changing the story. Does that all make sense to you?
Absolutely. And it's so timely.
It is, and it's just almost striking to me that these themes are coming together in a full moon, where we have an opportunity to shine a very big spotlight on how all of that plays out in our lives and to change it, right? We don't have to keep going in the victim story. We don't have to keep, all of the ugliness out there. We can change it at any moment that we want to, but it starts with changing the words perhaps that you talk about others with, or the words that you talk about yourself with. It's amazing.
It is. It's timely. And this is a message, I believe, that has been gathering strength on so many ways, because so many levels. I know I was talking about this with Rosemary Butterworth on a show, and I know next week Kiara's coming on, and she's going to be talking about how the environment is a mirror. What we think, what we say is reflected back to us. So as you're saying, Janet, let's change the story. Let's listen to what we say.
Yes.
And is it loving? Is it helpful? Or do we change our story, change our wording?
And it's up to us. That's the beautiful thing, is that we don't have to wait for some time in the future to start this. The time is now. Right? We can start turning everything around just by aligning ourselves with love, and then using words that match that, instead of using words that match the more contentious energies that we have, the frustration, the anger, the upset, the hate, all of that kind of stuff, right? We don't have to be there. We don't have to be there at all. And interesting too, because planet Uranus, which is a liberator, right? His job is to create revolution or to create a change. He does not like anything stagnant, right? And he late last week, moved into the gate 2, also on the identity center, the center or seat of love. And his job here at the gate 2 is about teaching us allowing and receiving, right? So receiving love. I think there's often a problem with us receiving love. I know for a long time in my life, and even still sometimes, when people want to shower me with love, I am so uncomfortable. But I want to shower everybody with love. It's so we are all sort of tapping into, where is it that we're cutting off the flow of receiving, of love, of resources, of anything, right? Because we're cutting it off because we've sort of blocked ourselves some way, like blocking our hearts, putting a big, don't come past this point. So Uranus is liberating us from those artificial blocks to receiving love at the same time. And he'll be at this gate until mid to late August. So he's not moving soon. So we will get to start to learn this lesson. And I think, again, the spotlight with the full moon with him in that gate gives us an opportunity to look at, where are we blocking out our receiving? Are we on one hand saying, I'm lonely, I'm sad, I want love in my life, but then holding those words instead of saying, my heart is open to receiving love? That changes the story. So again, another chapter here that we can change in terms of what we allow in our lives. I also looked at the planet Neptune, because Neptune is also a planet of love. Did you know that?
No.
So we have Venus, which is the planet of love, earthly love, so relationship type love. But Neptune is spiritual love. It's the unconditional love. It's universal love, we could call it, or unity, higher love, whatever way you want to describe it. Neptune really can bring us the bigger order of love. And Neptune is engaged with Mercury during this period of time in a channel in our human design called transitoriness. And it's an interesting concept, I think, because these two together, Mercury and Neptune, are creating new experiences for us that we can then align and attune and calibrate our lives to. But the one thing we have to remember is that new experiences can be really positive and uplifting, or they may not be so uplifting. But how we word what's going on in the experience is very important. We can either become jaded by the experience, or we can become excited by the experience, right? Even if it was something that didn't happen the way we thought it should happen, we here get to emotionally align ourselves with that new experience and share it with our fellow human beings. But it's also something about right timing. Sometimes the things that we think we want that we don't get, it just because the timing wasn't right yet. It's not that you're never going to get it. It's just that right now it wasn't in alignment. So
sometimes, Janet, we can forget that. We have human expectations, and sometimes we get really caught up in them, and to our own detriment. You mentioned before about trusting, and to me that's so important. Knowing and trusting and knowing that everything happens in divine time.
That's absolutely right. And divine right timing is not something that we control. We don't control the timing. And that can sometimes be something that we see as a conundrum, because the outer world tends to make us think that it's our job to go out and make things happen, or to go out and get it, go out and just do it. But the right timing is not our purview. It is the purview of spirit. And there's, we can push all we want, we can try to force, and all we might get is frustrated or upset or more victim-y, more whiny around, why can't I get what I want? And to the point where we give up, or we just get angry. And, then we start attracting more of those kinds of experiences to us that show us that we never get what we want. because the universe hears that that's what you want, because that's what you're focused on.
Yes.
So instead of, it's like a reverse psychology, right? You know, you're thinking that if I'm telling the universe, no, this isn't it, this is not what I wanted, that it's going to hear you and go, oh, okay, let me bring you what you really wanted. But unfortunately, the energy signature is all about anger and upset or frustration, and you're not getting what you want because the universe thinks because you're focusing on what you don't want, that you want more of it.
Now you're still using this chart, aren't you?
Oh, yes.
Because people can see the chart and they're not seeing us. If I
they should be seeing you and me too. I see both of us.
Oh, right. Yes. Well, I'm not sure how that works. Oh, there we are.
Yeah. So when you see it online, you'll see you and me in this little box on the top right, or however they have.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
With the screen behind it.
Right.
So I cannot believe I got through all that information in 40 minutes.
Oh, look, see, you're getting to be so succinct. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I don't think that's it. I think I'm forgetting something, but at the moment I don't know what that might be. So yeah. Oh, well, I know one of the things that I forgot to talk about was some of the things, the characteristics of Capricorn. We talk about this every day in the morning show that I'm on live. We talk about where the moon is and the characteristics of the sign so that people can be aware of what that tends to bring to them. So we did talk about Capricorn energy in human design, but in actual astrology, the sign of Capricorn rules our future security, our future, right? So the future as it relates to time and how we plan for old age or for retirement, or how we plan to create a safety or security net or a foundation. And it's also a sign of responsibility, right? Where we have to become responsible. Right. So all of the work of love and changing our story and all of that is a responsibility. So we have to respond. And part of that response is in our recognition of where we're going wrong with that story. What are we saying or doing that is not of a positive nature? And then in that case, we have to become more self-disciplined. Capricorn rules self-discipline and becoming an adult, like being mature, being responsible, and keeping our commitments and being committed to our own benefit, and as well being committed to our fellow human beings and their lives. It's about goals and ambition. Everything with Capricorn, because it's ruled by Saturn, begins with a goal or begins with an ambition or a drive or a dream or a hope even that sends us out, right, to look for the answers and to use opportunities to connect to those goals. And then success is also a part of Capricorn energy. And when we are focusing on our goals and when we take the steps that the universe is showing us one foot in front of the other, then we find recognition. We get rewarded, and by achieving the things that we wanted. So we also have that potential with the full moon. In order to maybe achieve a goal, we might have to let go of something that we've been holding on to. We might have to release it with love and allow the space for something new to come in that might be of a better match to what it is that we're trying to achieve. So achieving goals, respect, authority, not only authority like in authority figures, like your father or your boss or something like that, but your personal authority, claiming your personal authority, not giving away your power.
I think that's really important, Janet, because so often we do give it away and we don't realize that we do. We think that, oh, this person's in authority, therefore, we have to agree with what they're saying. Not necessarily.
But yeah, and there's that That's the kind of overt way that we give away our power. But there's also the more insidious ways we give away our power, like giving up on ourselves, like giving up our dreams, and or somebody else's dream we feel is bigger than ours. So we succumb to, just standing in the background rather than going for our own dreams and things. And that is us giving our power and our authority away. I mean, everybody is allowed to have their dreams fulfilled. There isn't any rules that say, I'm sorry, only this half of the group gets their dreams fulfilled and you all over there don't. There's nothing like that. It's equal opportunity, right? And the difference is in how we align ourselves with the potential of receiving those things that we desire. And as well, we end up with the more negative side of Capricorn energy, because we can't just all stay in the positive, because there is always the possibility that we're on the other side in some ways. And that's about excessive control, trying to control everything. The experience, who gets our love, when are we going to give them that love? Are we going to withhold love? That kind of thing. Pessimism, inflexibility, lack of joy, and a fear of the new, because there's something to do here with time that makes us a little edgy when it comes to the future, when it comes to something that's not tried and true. So on the negative side of this Capricorn energy is a fear of what's new, or of not knowing what will happen if we go with what's new. So all in all, the energy in Capricorn from an astrological point of view really gives us boundaries and really helps us to stand on our own 2 feet and in our own power. And in that, we can then attract love and be love, but also we have the power with the other planets that we talked about to rewrite the story. It doesn't mean that, by the way, we're ignoring the experience, right? If you've been through a messy divorce, rewriting the story doesn't mean that you're ignoring that you went through a messy divorce. It means that instead you're saying, yep, this was a tough time in my life. I felt really down. I was down on myself. I felt like everybody hated me in the family. But this is what I did with that, right? And this is where I am now. So we're seeing this progression of the story instead of just being, oh, woe is me. What was that character? Eeyore in Winnie the Pooh. Oh, woe is me.
Yes.
The cynic, right? Oh, nothing ever happens good for me, right? I think I'll just go eat worms, whatever. That was a different story. But so we see that we have a lot of power right now, and we just have to use it. We just have to be able to say, I'm going to do this. I'm going to claim my good, and I'm not going back on myself. I'm not giving up on myself.
It's a wonderful time of opportunity, Janet, and this program and your other, where you're emphasizing this, is so important. I hope that people are watching, whether that be live or down the track, because we cannot encourage people enough, really, to say, okay, what is it that I really want out of this life, and how do I feel about myself,
and what am I focusing my thoughts and my emotions and my energy on? I've been getting a little bit disturbed by things, throughout our history. We've been involved in wars. Like we had the war on drugs. There was this war on terror. And I'm not saying that it wasn't a worthy action or challenge to try to reduce drug use or to, find ways to avoid terror. But the minute that you put war in front of it, you put it back into that energy of anger and upset and negativity as opposed to positivity. And I think Marianne Williamson said something like this, that we needed a peace a department of the peace, right? We have a war department. We have a national security department. We have the military. But where's the counterbalance to those more negative expressions of defense and fear? Because we don't have that. We don't have that positive department that's out there on the lookout for peace, or for how we can get along, or how we can solve our problems without a war kind of situation. So it really means that we have big problems in the world because of that story and the way that we use language to create that story. So we have to start somewhere. So the best place to start is with ourselves and how we're utilizing language and talking about it. One of the things that has me concerned now is climate change, right? It's such a drumbeat right now. And I'm not saying that the planet isn't getting warmer, or that there hasn't been some, man-made, human-made changes on the planet based on, or on the climate based on what we've done. But what I am saying is that the more that we keep focusing on the symptoms and the problem, the more that we're attracting it to us.
Yes.
I don't think people get that.
Well, you mentioned language, and it's so important too. How often do we say, I'm fighting a disease, rather than embracing it? And I know I read a book once that was embracing cancer. And I thought, yes, there's the energy. Dr. Emoto years ago with his talking about water and the energy that is created through water. We can write on a glass or a container positive words, so that when we're drinking water, that's the energy we're taking in, rather than negative. And this is what you're saying today, to look at our language.
Look at your language and how you're it's a habit, I think, that we get into about how we talk about things. And again, I'm not suggesting that we put our heads in the sand and just, wish problems away. Although I would bet we could do that too. I would bet you if we did that, if we all agreed that that was a way to solve a problem, we could do it. But I am saying, let's reframe it a bit. And instead of focusing so heartily on the problem, let's focus on the solutions. What are the things that are within our control right now? If indeed the world is warming, and we seem to have evidence that it is, let's stop browbeating everybody for the warming and start doing some things that make a difference. Right? We can change how often we drive a car. We can change how corporations can pour carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. I mean, there are things, right? There are technologies out there that blow me away every time I read about them, about how we can right now start really affecting climate change in a positive way, because we have technology that allows us to let go of the use of oil and gas and putting more pollution and so forth out there in the world. But we have to have the will to be able to do that. And right now it seems like the will is all about, the clarion call, the blasting out of the words about what's happening, but not yet let's do something positive. Right? Let's do something that we can to change the problem so that we can move forward. And then later we'll be able to say, we had this problem where, the things that we were doing were contaminating our universe, contaminating our planet. And we learned, and we came together, and we found solutions, and we changed our planet for the better.
Absolutely.
It was that easy.
It's not. However, little steps, as we continually say, and for us, it starts with us. So how can I make a difference? And the thing is, Janet, when we embrace love ourselves, we're feeling better within ourselves.
And that comes off of you and allows other people in your, field of influence to also change to that. It allows them to be happier. It allows them to feel more positive. It allows them to change their story. So, so we each have quite a bit of power to be able to change our own story, our own way of thinking that has wide-ranging effects that we might not even notice in the beginning. But, you know, it's like, what's that saying? Wash, rinse, repeat, right? You just keep doing things in this new way, and soon the story becomes a loving story instead of a disempowering one.
Yes.
We can do this. I know we can. And these transits are coming up and they're showing us this pathway to be able to do this. Yeah.
Such a powerful time we live in. Oh,
yeah. And I get it when people are disappointed or disenfranchised, or they feel sad, or they're feeling angry or upset or polarized. I get that because it's out there too. But we created that by what we were focusing on. What were we focusing on?
And that's something that we quite often fail to look at. No, when we can see that things might be going wrong in our lives, and that's the time to stop and go, well, hey, what's the message I'm getting here? I'm taking myself down this track without realizing it.
Yeah. So for this new full moon, I keep calling it a new moon, but it's a full moon. For this full moon, remember who you are. That's the number one thing. Remember that you are a divine being in a human body, and that you have co-creative powers, that you are co-creating this reality. And if you don't like what you see, then change the story. Change the story, add in some love, sparkles, and good wishes, and watch the results, right? Watch the results. And that's where everybody can use, that's what everybody can be doing for this full moon, is looking at, just even if it's just one thing in your life that shows up repeatedly, a story that you repeat to yourself that isn't positive, right? One that of disempowerment, or one, of I'm not good enough. Change that one story and watch the impact.
And I'd like to thank Jacqueline for joining us. She's suddenly gone, oh my God, I forgot. But the beautiful thing is, Jacqueline, you can watch us in the replay, as can everybody. So, and especially Janet, there was so much information in there. It's a good idea for people to revisit parts that they might be a little unsure of. I mean, you hit it in a nutshell there. Let's spread the love, embrace ourselves, and listen to our core center. And well done, Jacqueline. She's shared to her page. Thank you so much. That's wonderful.
Jacqueline. She's a great follower. She listens to she shows up just about, I think, every morning that I go on live. Jacqueline is out there, and she's totally Miss Positive. Not that she hasn't had bad experiences, or not that she hasn't had challenges, because she has, but it's just amazing to watch how just some people shine out light and love, like without trying too hard. And others, have had experience. There are people that have had tragic experiences. I get that. But even that isn't a reason to give up on love. It's a reason to celebrate, right? Not that happened, or that tragedy occurred, but that celebrate what you can from that. If it was a death of a person, celebrate that person's life, and that they touched the planet while they were here, however long that might have been. Celebrate their love, their light, their wisdom, whatever it is, instead of drowning in sorrow over their death, because they're on to a new path, right? They're on into a new adventure. It doesn't mean we aren't sad, or that we can't feel sad or feel, down. But it's always our choice. It's always our choice on what we're going to feel. And when we just keep applying love, everything just gets better. It's like the antidote.
I can attest to that. I know Jacqueline can attest to that. So let's spread the love.
There we go. That's a good plan.
Janet, Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Annette. It was great being here.
I will enjoy the full moon. I hope everybody enjoys the full moon. And I hope that we continue to embrace life, whatever it brings you. Make the most of it.
Yes.
Thank you all very, very much.
Bye, Annette. See you next month.
Okay, will do, Janet.